The sin of speaking negativity. Have you ever noticed how one negative sentence can completely change the atmosphere of a room? One complaint, one curse, one sentence filled with doubt, and suddenly hope disappears. But what if I told you something most people don't realize? Speaking negativity is not just a bad habit. It can actually become a spiritual trap. Many people pray for blessings. They ask God for success. They ask for peace, money, healing, and opportunities. But at the same time, their words are destroying everything they are asking for. They say things like, "I will never succeed. My life is cursed. Nothing good ever happens to me. I'm always unlucky." And slowly, those words begin to shape their reality. Because words are not just sounds. Words carry power. Words influence your mind, your decisions, your faith, and even your future. Some people don't understand this, but negativity spreads like poison. One negative voice can infect an entire family. One negative mindset can destroy relationships. One negative belief can stop someone from achieving their purpose. And the most dangerous part, most people don't even realize they are doing it. They think they are just being realistic. But in reality, they are feeding fear, doubt, and darkness into their own lives. This is why many spiritual teachers warn about the sin of negative speech. Because when you constantly speak negativity, you begin to align yourself with defeat instead of faith. And tonight, you are about to understand something that may change the way you speak forever. Because negativity doesn't just affect your mood, it can affect your destiny. Let's begin. Part 1. Words create your direction. Most people think their life is controlled by luck, but that's not true. Your life is often guided by the words you repeat every single day. Think about it carefully. If someone constantly says, "I can't do this," "I'm not good enough," "I will fail," their brain begins to believe it. Their confidence drops. Their motivation disappears. Their opportunities shrink, not because they were unlucky, but because their words programmed their mind for defeat. This is something many successful people understand deeply. Your words become your inner environment. If your inner environment is full of fear, doubt, and negativity, your life will reflect that environment. But if your words are filled with faith, patience, and strength, your life begins to change. Now here is something even deeper that most people ignore. Negative speech doesn't only affect you, it affects the people around you. Imagine being around someone who constantly says, "This will never work. Everything is pointless. Why even try?" After some time, even strong people begin to feel tired. Because negativity drains energy. It slowly kills hope. And this is why speaking negativity repeatedly becomes dangerous. Not just psychologically, but spiritually. Because when you constantly speak darkness, you begin to block the light that could enter your life. Many people unknowingly close doors that God was about to open, just because they kept speaking doubt. And the truth is, some of the greatest opportunities in life require faith before evidence. But negativity destroys faith. It makes people give up too early. It convinces them that change is impossible. And that is how dreams die. Not because they were impossible, but because negativity convinced someone to stop trying. Part 2. The hidden consequence of negative words. Here is something that might shock you. Negativity is contagious. It spreads faster than motivation. If one person in a family constantly complains, soon others begin to complain too. If one person constantly predicts failure, soon everyone starts expecting failure. And slowly, a culture of negativity forms. This is how entire groups of people remain stuck. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunities, but because negativity became normal. And when negativity becomes normal, growth becomes rare. But there is something even more serious. Negative speech can weaken your connection with hope and trust in God. When someone constantly says, "Nothing will ever change," what they are really doing is surrendering to despair. And despair is dangerous, because once a person truly believes that nothing good can happen, they stop moving forward. They stop improving. They stop believing. They stop praying with confidence. And that is where negativity becomes a silent destroyer of destiny. But here's the good news. The moment you become aware of this, you can break the pattern. You can change the direction of your life simply by changing the language you use every day. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you start saying, I will try again. Instead of saying, my life is ruined, you say, this is just a difficult season. Instead of saying, nothing works for me, you say, my breakthrough is coming. And slowly, your mindset begins to transform. Your actions improve. Your faith grows stronger. And your life begins to move in a different direction. Because powerful change often starts with something very simple. A single sentence. The question is, what kind of words are you speaking over your life today? Because those words may be shaping your future more than you realize. Part 3. How negativity slowly destroys your mind. Most people believe negativity only affects emotions for a short time. They think complaining, worrying, or speaking negatively is harmless. But the truth is far more serious. Negativity does not just pass through your mind. It stays. It builds patterns inside your brain. Every time you repeat a negative thought out loud, your mind begins to treat it like a fact. At first it is just a sentence, then it becomes a belief, and eventually it becomes your identity. This is how people unknowingly trap themselves in a cycle of failure. A person who keeps saying, I'm not smart enough, will stop trying to learn. A person who constantly says, I'm always unlucky, will stop noticing opportunities. A person who says, my life is going nowhere, will stop building a future. Do you see what is happening? Negativity slowly rewires your perception of reality. And once your perception changes, your actions begin to change as well. This is why many people who had great potential never reach it. Not because they lack talent, but because negativity convinced them that effort was pointless. But there is something even deeper that most people don't talk about. Negative words create emotional exhaustion. When you constantly speak negativity, your brain remains in a state of stress. It begins to expect problems. It begins to search for danger. It begins to assume the worst outcome. And slowly, your peace disappears. Your motivation decreases. Your energy fades. This is why some people feel tired, even when they are not physically working hard. Because negativity drains mental strength. And the most dangerous part of all, people begin to normalize it. They say things like, that's just how I am. I'm just being honest. I'm just telling the truth. But honesty without hope becomes destructive thinking, because truth should not only reveal problems, it should also leave space for growth, change, and possibility. And when negativity removes that possibility, it begins to damage the mind. That is the moment when speaking negativity becomes more than just words. It becomes a silent enemy inside your own thoughts. Part 4. The spiritual weight of negative speech. Now let's talk about something most people rarely consider. Words do not only affect the mind, they affect the spirit. Throughout history, wise people have warned about the power of the tongue, because the tongue can either build life or destroy it. One sentence can inspire someone to rise again, but another sentence can push someone into deep despair. And this is why speaking negativity repeatedly becomes spiritually dangerous. When someone constantly spreads fear, doubt, and hopelessness, they unknowingly become a source of darkness around them. You may have noticed this in real life. There are some people who enter a room and bring peace, but there are others who enter a room and immediately bring tension. Why? Because words carry energy, and people can feel it. A person who constantly speaks negativity creates an environment of pressure and heaviness. Over time, people start avoiding them, not because they hate them, but because their spirit feels drained around them. And here is something very important. Many people who speak negativity are not bad people. They are simply hurt, tired, or afraid. Sometimes life disappoints them so many times that negativity becomes their shield. They believe if they expect the worst, they won't be hurt again. But what they don't realize is this: constant negativity does not protect you. It imprisons you. It locks your heart in a place where hope struggles to survive. And hope is essential for growth. Hope is what gives people the strength to rebuild. Hope is what allows someone to try again after failure. Hope is what keeps faith alive during difficult seasons. But negativity slowly suffocates hope. And once hope disappears, life begins to feel meaningless. This is why controlling your words is not just about being positive. It is about protecting your spirit, because the words you speak repeatedly become the atmosphere you live in. If your words are filled with darkness, your life begins to feel dark. But if your words begin to shift toward faith, patience, and strength, your entire emotional world begins to change. Part 5. The trap most people don't realize they are in. Here is one of the most dangerous forms of negativity, and almost everyone has fallen into it at some point. It is called hidden negativity. This is when people speak negative words in a way that seems normal or harmless. For example, people say, "I'm probably going to fail anyway. I already know this won't work. People like me never succeed. I'm just being realistic." But what they don't understand is that these sentences slowly build a mental prison, because when you expect failure, you stop preparing for success. When you assume rejection, you stop putting yourself out there. When you believe nothing will change, you stop trying to improve your life. And that is exactly how negativity traps people, not with loud fear, but with quiet doubt. And quiet doubt is extremely powerful. It whispers things like, "Don't take that risk. Don't start that project. Don't chase that dream." And slowly, your life becomes smaller than it was meant to be. This is why some people wake up years later and realize something painful. They didn't fail because they lacked ability. They failed because they listened to negative voices for too long. Sometimes those voices came from others, but many times, those voices came from within. And the truth is, your inner voice can either become your greatest supporter or your greatest enemy. If your inner voice constantly criticizes you, doubts you, and predicts failure, you will struggle to move forward. But if you begin training your inner voice to encourage you, guide you, and strengthen you, everything changes. This is where transformation begins, not outside, but inside your words. Because once your words change, your mindset changes. Once your mindset changes, your actions change. And once your actions change, your entire life direction can change. But the first step is awareness. You must begin noticing the words you speak every single day, because those words might be building your future or silently destroying it. Part 6. When negativity becomes a habit. There is a moment in life when negativity stops being a reaction and becomes a habit. At first, people speak negatively because they are frustrated. Maybe something didn't work out. Maybe someone betrayed them. Maybe life became harder than they expected. But instead of healing from those experiences, they begin repeating negative words every day. And slowly, something dangerous happens. Their brain begins to treat negativity as normal thinking. They wake up expecting problems. They walk into situations expecting disappointment. They meet people expecting betrayal. And because their mind is already prepared for negativity, that is exactly what they start noticing everywhere. This is called a negative filter. It is when the mind stops seeing opportunities and starts focusing only on problems. For example, a positive opportunity appears in someone's life, but instead of seeing possibility, they say, "This probably won't last. This is too good to be true. Something bad will happen soon." And just like that, they sabotage their own happiness. This is why many people struggle to enjoy good moments in life, because negativity trained their mind to expect loss even during success. But here is something most people never realize. Habits shape destiny. If negativity becomes your daily habit, it begins guiding your decisions. You start avoiding risks that could change your life. You stop believing in your own growth. You begin settling for less than you deserve. And slowly, your life becomes smaller than it was meant to be. But the truth is, negativity is not your natural state. It is something that was learned. which means it can also be unlearned, but only if you first recognize the habit. Because the first step to breaking negativity is noticing when it appears in your words. And many people are shocked when they realize how often they speak negatively without even thinking. Part 7. The silent damage negativity causes to relationships. Negativity doesn't just affect your personal success. It also damages the relationships around you. And this is something many people discover too late. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who constantly complains? No matter what happens, they always find something wrong. If something good happens, they say it won't last. If someone tries to help them, they doubt the intention. If life improves, they focus on what is still missing. Being around such a person slowly becomes exhausting because negativity drains emotional energy. Over time, people begin to distance themselves, not out of hatred, but out of self-protection. This is how negativity silently destroys connections. Friendships weaken, family bonds become tense, opportunities disappear, and the person speaking negativity often doesn't understand why people are pulling away. They think, why does no one support me? Why does everyone leave? Why do people avoid me? But the truth is difficult to accept. Constant negativity creates an emotional environment where people feel heavy instead of uplifted. And humans naturally move toward environments that give them hope, peace, and encouragement. This doesn't mean you must pretend everything is perfect. Life has struggles. Everyone faces problems, but there is a difference between sharing struggles and spreading hopelessness. One invites support, the other pushes people away. And the sad reality is this: some people lose incredible relationships simply because they allowed negativity to control their words. But the moment someone begins speaking with awareness, something powerful happens. Their relationships begin to heal because people feel safe around someone who speaks with balance, strength, and hope. And that is something the world desperately needs. Part 8. The battle between two voices inside you. Every human being has two voices inside their mind. One voice speaks fear. The other voice speaks possibility. One voice says, you will fail. You're not ready. You're not strong enough. But the other voice says, try again. Learn from this. You are growing. And the battle between these two voices happens every single day. The problem is, many people unknowingly give more power to the negative voice. They listen to it more. They repeat it more. They believe it more. And over time, that voice becomes louder. But here is something incredibly important to understand. Your inner voice is shaped by what you feed it. If you constantly repeat negative sentences about yourself, your mind begins to believe that is your identity. But if you start replacing those words with stronger, wiser thoughts, your mind begins to transform. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to let negativity control your future. Because reality can change, situations can improve, people can grow. And the moment you begin controlling your words, you begin controlling the direction of your life. But most people never reach this realization. They spend years listening to the wrong voice. The voice of doubt, the voice of fear, the voice of negativity. And by the time they realize it, they have already limited themselves in ways they never intended. But the powerful truth is this: it is never too late to change the voice you follow. Because the moment you decide to stop feeding negativity, you weaken its power over your life. And when negativity loses its power, confidence begins to grow, faith begins to return, and your future begins to look different. But the question now is, which voice have you been feeding all this time? And more importantly, which voice will you choose to follow from today? Part 9. The moment negativity starts blocking your blessings. There comes a point where negativity does more than affect your thoughts. It begins to block the good things that were trying to enter your life. Most people never notice when this happens, because the change is slow, very slow. At first, nothing seems different. You continue speaking doubt. You continue expecting problems. You continue telling yourself that nothing will work. But gradually, your attitude begins to influence your decisions. You stop applying for opportunities. You stop trusting people who genuinely want to help you. You stop taking steps that could improve your life. And this is how negativity quietly closes doors. Not because those doors were locked, but because you stopped walking toward them. Many people believe their life is stuck because of external problems. But sometimes the real obstacle is internal. It is the belief that nothing good will happen. And when someone truly believes that, they unconsciously reject progress. Imagine someone offering you an opportunity, but your mind instantly says, "This won't work for me," so you refuse it. Later, you watch someone else succeed with that same opportunity, and you wonder, why does life never choose me? But the truth is painful. Sometimes life did choose you. You just didn't believe it was meant for you. This is the hidden danger of negative speech. It trains your mind to reject possibilities before they even begin. And once that pattern becomes strong, even blessings can start looking like risks. Opportunities can look like problems. Support can look like manipulation. And slowly, you begin isolating yourself from the very things that could transform your life. But here is the powerful truth many people discover later. The moment you start believing that change is possible, doors begin appearing again. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because your perception changed. And perception often determines direction, which means negativity doesn't just affect your mood. It affects the path you choose to walk. Part 10. The day you realize words shape reality. There is a moment in many people's lives when they suddenly realize something shocking. Their words have been shaping their reality all along. At first, this realization feels uncomfortable because it forces you to reflect on how many times you spoke defeat over yourself, how many times you predicted failure, how many times you stopped yourself before even trying. But once that awareness arrives, it becomes a turning point because you begin noticing something powerful. The people who succeed in difficult situations often speak differently. They don't ignore challenges. They don't pretend life is easy. But they refuse to speak in a way that destroys their own courage. When they fail, they say, "I learned something." When they struggle, they say, "This is temporary." When they face obstacles, they say, "I will find another way." And this mindset changes everything because words influence action, and action influences results. Most people are waiting for motivation to appear before they change their life. But motivation often appears after you change your thinking. This means that transformation begins with something very small. A decision to stop feeding negativity. A decision to become aware of the sentences you repeat daily. A decision to speak with intention instead of frustration. At first, this feels strange, because negativity might have been part of your thinking for years. But slowly, your brain begins to adapt. Your confidence increases, your mind becomes calmer, and opportunities that once felt impossible start looking achievable. This is why controlling your words is one of the most powerful forms of self-discipline, because once you master your speech, you begin mastering your mindset. And once your mindset changes, your entire life direction can shift. But there is still one final truth most people need to understand. And it is something that can completely change the way you live from today forward. Part 11. The responsibility of the words you speak. Every day, whether you realize it or not, your words are creating an atmosphere around you. An invisible environment that people can feel. Some people create an atmosphere of fear and doubt. Others create an atmosphere of strength and hope. The difference often comes down to the way they speak. Now think about this carefully. If someone is constantly surrounded by negativity, their energy drops, their confidence weakens, their motivation fades. But when someone is surrounded by encouraging words, something inside them begins to awaken. They start believing again. They start trying again. They start rebuilding what they once thought was lost. This is the responsibility that comes with your words, because your speech does not only affect you, it affects the people around you, your family, your friends, your future, even strangers who hear you speak. A single sentence can lift someone out of darkness or push them deeper into it, and many people underestimate how powerful this is. But history is filled with moments where words changed everything. Words started movements. Words inspired courage. Words helped people survive their hardest days. And the same power exists in your voice, which means every day you are making a choice. You are either strengthening negativity or weakening it. You are either spreading fear or spreading hope. You are either limiting your future or expanding it. And once someone truly understands this, they begin speaking with awareness. They stop using words that destroy their own potential. They stop repeating thoughts that trap them in doubt. They start choosing language that builds strength instead of weakness, because they realize something most people learn too late. Your words are not just sounds, they are seeds. And whatever seeds you plant repeatedly eventually grow. So the real question is not whether words have power. The real question is, what kind of future are your words planting right now? Part 12. The day you decide to break the cycle. There is a moment in life when a person becomes tired of repeating the same patterns, the same doubts, the same fears, the same negative words that have followed them for years. And one day, something inside them shifts. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because they finally realized something important. Negativity has been controlling their story for too long. Many people reach this realization after experiencing repeated disappointment. They start asking themselves a question they never asked before. What if my words are keeping me stuck? At first, this thought feels uncomfortable, because it means accepting responsibility. It means realizing that some of the limits in your life may not only come from the outside world, but from the language you have been speaking about yourself. But strangely enough, this realization is not depressing, it is empowering. Because if negativity helped create the pattern, then changing your words can help break it. This is the moment where transformation begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. It begins when you start catching yourself before speaking negatively. When your mind says, "This will never work," and you pause. When you feel like saying, "My life is a mess," but instead you choose a different sentence. This is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about refusing to let negativity define your future. And the truth is, breaking this cycle takes awareness and discipline. Because negativity is easy. It requires no effort to complain, doubt, or predict failure. But choosing stronger words requires courage. It requires patience. It requires a decision to grow beyond the version of yourself that was shaped by fear. Many people never reach this stage. They continue repeating the same negative patterns for decades. But those who do break the cycle often experience something powerful. Their mindset becomes clearer. Their energy changes. Their confidence slowly returns. And opportunities that once felt impossible begin appearing again. Because the moment you stop feeding negativity, you begin creating space for something else. Faith, growth, possibility. And that is where real change begins. Not when life becomes perfect, but when you decide that negativity will no longer control your voice. Choose your words carefully. Now take a moment and think about the words you use today. Not just the ones you spoke out loud, but the ones you repeated inside your mind. Did they strengthen you, or did they weaken you? Because whether people realize it or not, every day we are shaping our future with the language we choose. Some people wake up and unknowingly speak defeat over their lives. They say they are unlucky. They say success is not for them. They say nothing will change. And over time, those words become a cage. But there are others who decide to change something small but powerful. They change the way they speak about their struggles. They stop calling themselves failures. They stop predicting their own downfall. They begin speaking with awareness, patience, and strength. And slowly, their life begins to move in a new direction. Because words influence belief, Belief influences action, and action influences destiny. But here is the most important truth of all. Negativity will always try to return. There will always be moments when doubt appears, moments when frustration makes you want to complain, moments when fear whispers that you should give up. But the difference between those who stay stuck and those who grow is the choice they make in those moments. Do they repeat the negative voice, or do they challenge it? Because the moment you stop agreeing with negativity, its power over you begins to fade. And the more you choose words that build strength instead of weakness, the more your mindset transforms. Your environment changes. Your future expands. But this is not just about your life. Your words also affect the people around you. Someone listening to you might be struggling silently. Someone hearing your voice might be searching for hope. And sometimes one sentence can make the difference between someone giving up or trying again. That is how powerful words are. So from this day forward, remember something most people forget. Your words are not just expressions. They are direction. They guide where your mind goes. They shape what you believe, and they influence the path your life takes. Which means the question is not whether negativity is dangerous. The real question is this: are you going to continue feeding it? Or are you finally ready to take control of the words that shape your life? Because the moment you make that decision, everything can begin to change.